This week on Origins Explained, we examine the real-life inspirations behind the slasher series Halloween. We go over what directly inspired the character of Michael Myers, as well as an urban legend that could be tied to the character, and the real-life serial killer that may have served as an inspiration for the iconic monster. Without further ado, let's get into it. Released in 1978, Halloween is one of the most iconic movies of our time. While it's not the first slasher movie, it became one of the highest grossing ones and set the tone for all other slasher films that would follow it. It even has a place in the Library of Congress's 2006 National Film Registry and is considered to be culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. With the working title The Babysitter Murders, Halloween was originally about a stalker that killed babysitters, but the concept was slightly altered after it was decided that the movie would take place on the first night of Halloween, hence the name. Director John Carpenter wanted to make an old haunted house movie. In an interview with Rolling Stone, he explained the concept further. When we used to go to state fairs, they always had an attraction called the haunted house. It would be completely dark, and as you stepped on certain boards, things would jump out and scare you. Sort of like the spook ride at an amusement park. That's what I wanted to do. A spook ride on film, taking the audience through twists and turns and having things jump out at them. Once they settled on the concept of Halloween as the main driver behind the story, things began to click, and the script was written in about 3 weeks. According to co-writer Deborah Hill, the Festival of Samhain played an important role. She said, "The idea was you couldn't kill evil. We went back to the old idea of Samhain, that Halloween was the night when all the souls are let out to wreak havoc on the living, and then came up with the story about the most evil kid who ever lived." Further explaining the idea behind Michael Myers, Carpenter says, "Most small towns have a kind of haunted house story of one kind or another. At least that's what teenagers believe. There's always a house down the lane that somebody was killed in or that somebody went crazy in." With that in mind, let's get into the inspirations behind Michael Myers, aka The Shape. The first inspiration comes from a chance meeting Carpenter had at a mental institution. In the Halloween documentary, A Cut Above the Rest, he details an encounter he had with a patient and how it inspired the character of Michael Myers. While attending Western Kentucky University, Carpenter and his classmates went to visit a mental institution as part of a psychology class. He recounts the experience as follows. "We visited the most serious mentally ill patients, and there was this kid. He must have been 12 or 13, and he literally had this look. The boy had a real evil stare. It was unsettling to me. It was like the creepiest thing I'd ever seen. It was completely insane." This experience had such an effect on Carpenter that when he wrote the Michael Myers character, he couldn't help but think back to it. In the movie, Dr. Loomis explains his experience in meeting Michael Myers for the first time. Moreover, the words Dr. Loomis uses to describe Michael are the same words Carpenter would use to describe the boy at the mental institution.
"I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil."
The second inspiration may come from Stanley STIERS, the so-called real-life version of Michael Myers. Born in 1912 in Iowa, Stanley led a tragic life from the very beginning. Shortly after his birth, a nurse in the hospital swapped him with another baby, just for kicks. When the STIERS family found out, the nurse went to jail, but it was too late to switch the babies back. The STIERS' real son had died in a car crash, along with Stanley's biological parents. Filled with anger and grief, the STIERS decided to take out their frustrations on Stanley and abused him throughout his childhood. When the STIERS had their own baby girl named Susie, they proceeded to spoil her, in contrast with the treatment they gave to Stanley. Susie would grow to join in on her parents' cruelty towards her brother. The abuse from his family was not the only thing he had to suffer through, as he was bullied by several classmates and neighborhood kids. On October 31st, 1923, 11-year-old Stanley wanted to go trick-or-treating, but his parents forbade it, only allowing Susie to enjoy the festivities. After years of abuse, Stanley had had enough and proceeded to murder his entire family with a butcher knife. He then went trick-or-treating while also murdering his bullies and their families along the way. The mass murders did not go unnoticed, and federal agents soon arrested Stanley and took him to a private psychiatric institution. He was there for 13 years, until he escaped on October 31st, 1936. Standing at 6'4" and 260 pounds, Stanley killed the orderlies that were in charge of him and proceeded to make his way out. Once outside, agents tried to apprehend him and even managed to shoot him a couple of times, but were not able to take him down. Stanley killed several officers and has never been captured. While the story of Stanley Stiers has made its way around Halloween fan sites, there is no record of a Stanley Stiers committing a murder spree in Iowa in 1923 or 1936. Much like the haunted house stories Carpenter mentioned, Stanley Stiers seems to be nothing more than an urban legend or a creepypasta. However, the last inspiration we're covering did in fact take place. The final inspiration comes in the form of serial killer Ed Kemper. Born Edmund Emil Kemper III on December 18, 1948, he was the middle child and only son of Clarnell Elizabeth Kemper and Edmund Emil Kemper II. Like Michael Myers, depending on the movie, Ed Kemper had an older sister, Susan Huey Kemper, and a younger sister, Ellen Lee Kemper. At a young age, he showed disturbing signs of behavior, such as decapitating dolls, watching his teachers through her window while he held a bayonet, and killing family pets. When his parents separated, Clarnell kept custody of Kemper, but abused and humiliated him often, finding him to be a real weirdo. She even kept him locked up in the basement because she was afraid he would harm his sisters. Moreover, she would mock him even for his large size. By age 15, Kemper would stand at 6'4" and would grow to stand at 6'9", the same height as that of Tyler Mane, the actor that would portray Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie remake. At age 14, Kemper ran away from home to stay with his dad, but he would soon be sent to live with his paternal grandparents on a ranch. On August 27, 1964, his grandmother Maud Matilda Huey Kemper and grandfather Edmund Emil Kemper became his first victims. After an argument with his grandmother, he retrieved his hunting rifle and shot her multiple times. In explaining the murder, Kemper said, "I just wondered how it would feel to shoot Grandma." When his grandfather arrived home, Kemper shot him outside, allegedly to stop him from finding out his wife was dead. On advice from his mom, he turned himself in and spent the next 5 years at Atascadero State Hospital, a maximum security facility housing mentally ill convicts. With an IQ of 145, Kemper used his smarts to manipulate his psychiatrists, which led to his parole release on December 18, 1969, his 21st birthday. Between 1972 and 1973, Kemper would kill 8 women, including his mother. He killed hitchhikers and women from the college campus where his mother worked. He also raped them, dismembered them, and committed acts of cannibalism and necrophilia. Shortly after killing his mother, Kemper turned himself in and was indicted on 8 counts of first-degree murder. On November 8, 1973, the jury found him guilty in all counts, and he received 7 years to life for each count, with the terms to be served concurrently. While Carpenter has never stated that Kemper was a direct inspiration for Michael Myers, the similarities are hard to dismiss. Many fans of the series believe Kemper to be an influence, if at least subconsciously, on the character and actions of The Shape. Regardless of the connection, it goes to show that life is always darker than fiction. So next time you watch a Halloween movie, just be glad that Michael Myers will always be on the other side of your screen.